Well, welcome everyone to this afternoon's National Language Advocacy Days training webinar. And I just want to welcome each and every one of you and thank you for joining us. We have some important information that we're excited to share, but most importantly, we want to thank you because you represent those who we represent on Capitol Hill. And so we want to encourage you to take these next few minutes. If you want to have a notepad to take down any notes, feel free to do that, but we'll be sharing all of these materials with you. And so just as we get started, a little bit of things to know before we go. First of all, please keep your microphone muted. This program will be recorded so that you can have access to it and or share it with others as we prepare for February's meetings. Secondly, there will be an opportunity at the end for some questions and answers. Please direct those questions to the host in the chat. That will be going to Executive Director Amanda Seawald. And you can put questions in as you go, but there'll also be time at the end to add in any of those questions that we haven't yet answered for you. And finally, please keep your video off. There isn't any real reason why we need to share that, as we'll be sharing slides with you. So with that, let's get started. So I want to begin with just an overview of who we are as the Joint National Committee on Languages, or commonly known as JNCL, and why we exist. JNCL is a national network of leading language organizations, but also businesses that are doing work related to languages and language education. So altogether, we represent a large constituency, 300,000 plus language professionals like you. And our goal really is to represent you as well as the needs and legislative policies that would benefit the work that you do in the trenches on Capitol Hill. And so we address a number of different issues and groups, from K-12 world language education to higher ed, to serving the needs of our English language learners, our dual language immersion programs, really advocating for earlier and longer language learning sequences, as well as providing that teacher pipeline of language educators, serving peripheral, sometimes unseen language groups like our community-based heritage language programs, and serving the future pipeline, those that will be using language in all career fields that we can think of, and certainly those in the translation and interpretation industries. So our next slide. And so who we are as language advocates are individuals that are representatives of those member organizations who have joined JNCL to partner and collaborate together to work as a team to get language policies and education programs in place that ensure our mission, which is that every language learner or every student in the United States has the opportunity to learn English and at least, if not more, than one other language. And this year's event is building on what we did last year, where we learned how language is at the intersection of all different walks of life and career paths, and how that if we bring language to our students, we can also build opportunity. And so that is this year's theme, building opportunity through multilingualism. And that is, the need, the crucial need that we want to support and bring and make visible on a Capitol Hill in our meetings this coming February. And so if you see the impact that LAD, or Language Advocacy Days, has, is we spend this time to invest in what will happen throughout the following year, which is to really do a number of things that are supported on both sides of the aisle. And that's an important, critical piece, is to get legislation through, we need support. And so there is a reason for language in every walk of life. And that's our goal, is to identify that and make that visible and provide some tangible examples to our legislators. So we're going to help you do that in today's session. And so with that, I'm going to turn this over to new Executive Director for JNCL, Amanda Seawald.
Thank you so much. And I first want to take a moment and make sure we introduce our new president, Linda Ignatz, who we're thrilled to have serving us beginning this January. Of course, she was president-elect the last couple of years, and it's been such an awesome opportunity for us to work together, and I love the fact that we can get to continue doing this. So thank you so much for getting us started, Linda. And what I want to do now is just kind of walk you through the general idea of what the 3 days look like for us. So Wednesday is our day for getting ready to go to Capitol Hill. And on that day, you'll be welcomed. You'll have some really great information and great ideas that will inspire you from learners around the country, from people around the country, from experts, and from some really inspirational speakers. And you'll see some of them listed on the right-hand side there, some from Wednesday, some from Thursday, and some from Friday. And what we do on Wednesday is, that'll be when John Bernstein, who will speak to you next, will really share the ideas that we need to focus on when we go to our legislative meetings, and what that looks like, and what are the words and the ideas that we can use to do that. In addition to that, you'll learn about the platform that we use. You'll get to log into it, and you'll have an opportunity to plan with your state teams. That idea of state teams is such an important piece, and I encourage you to think about who's on that team with you, who might be there, and who you might want to also still ask to be included and to make sure that they register. That's an important piece as well. So that happens afternoon on Wednesday. We always start in the afternoon so that we can try and make it easy for everyone in different parts of the country. So we start at 3, and then we have a lot of our planning for the legislative asks. Then we take a break, and we come back around 6 o'clock, where we have a great featured speaker this year. It's Ramu Damodaran, who is absolutely inspirational, and I think you'll learn so much from him. You bring your wine or whatever your drink of choice is, and just sit there and enjoy and listen and be inspired. And then we'll have an opportunity to network. And we've done this the last couple of years, where it's given us a great chance to break into smaller groups in different ways and have a chance to meet and talk to a lot of other colleagues, even though we're not in person. This is a really unique way for us to be able to do it. Then Thursday's the day. Thursday is the day when you have all of your meetings, and of course your schedules you will be receiving on February 1st. That will be the information you'll receive from advocacy associates, who are the people who schedule our meetings. You'll get information on logging in to your platform, where you'll be able to see all of the information about your representatives, about the people you'll be meeting with, both the legislators, the staff members, as well as the people who will be in your state team. So you'll have all that information at your fingertips as of February 1st. And then that Thursday, you'll take your meetings at the times that are given for your meetings, and you'll then have time during the day on and off for when you're going to be in meetings. And then that evening is our award ceremony. I encourage you to come to that this year. We've got some incredible people receiving awards, and I'm sure it's going to be a very exciting evening. And then Friday is the day when we come back. We have our Delegates Assembly, which please be sure that you attend at 2:15. And we start our day on Wednesday really focusing on what our state delegations were able to highlight in the videos that they make for us about their experiences on Capitol Hill. Then we will have a featured speaker. Actually, we're going to have a couple of incredible speakers that day. But one of them is Roberto Rodriguez, who will be speaking with us from the Department of Education. He is the Assistant Secretary of Education, specifically focusing on policy development and on planning and some of these ideas. He will be able to share with us specifically around the concept of multilingualism and where the Department of Education's priorities are on this. And I think he'll be happy to hear some of the things he shares with us. What we would like you to do is please be sure we'll be sending out a request for questions that you might want to ask him. And if anyone has a question that you would like to ask, if you would send that to us soon, we'll see if we can ask some of them during that day. So we'll be sending out some requests about that. And then we're moving to an incredible breakout session where you will hear from at least, well, you're going to hear at least from 1, 2, 3 superintendents, because you'll have the opportunity. There will be 7 superintendents that you will have that will be in different rooms total, speaking from around the country and their perspectives of how to build a globalized curriculum and a language focused experience for learners K through 12. And I think this will really be a great experience for us to understand those perspectives and leadership and help us figure out what we can do to advocate in our own districts. And of course, we'll round out the day with some incredible closing events and advocating beyond LAD. I'm looking forward to seeing you all there. And you'll be getting more specific information as time goes on the next week or so. Now, we can go to the next slide. And of course, it is now time for me to turn this over to the incredible John Bernstein, our Director of Government Relations, who has been leading the charge for us on Capitol Hill to help us move a lot of these ideas forward. And he'll explain a lot about what's going on in Congress and kind of just the broader strokes about what we're going to be doing at LAD. John.
Thanks, Amanda. Thank you, Linda, and good afternoon, everyone. Let me just start by thanking all of you for taking the time to do this. This year, almost more than any other year, is a really critical time to engage with Capitol Hill. As you're all aware, we don't have a new administration, but we have a new Congress, and we have a new Republican majority in Congress. There's a lot of new members on the House side. There's a handful of new members on the Senate side. And with those new members come new staffers, a lot of whom are blank slates. So you're going to have a terrific opportunity to be some of the first people they meet with to educate them about, in this case, the value of language and teaching language at, all the way from K through 12 through higher ed. We have a very broad-based agenda of asks, as you can see here, and I'll get into those in more detail at the actual conference. But we're going to deal with everything from regular annualized funding to passing a brand new program at the Department of Education that will make sure that we have an innovative world language program there, to making sure that there are study abroad opportunities for all students that are available. We're still going to take another run at making sure that there is federal support for CLL biliteracy programs. All that and more, and maybe even a few things that aren't listed here yet, we're going to talk about. But I want you all to keep in mind that because this is a new Congress and literally they are just getting off the ground right now, there's not a lot of legislation that has yet been introduced. A lot of bills are still being formulated, including our own World Leap bill, possibly including the BEST Act, and certainly the Senator Paul Simon Study Abroad Act. So don't be disappointed if you're not there asking for something very specific yet. That's coming. And we know that, or we're hoping at least, that all of these things that are listed here are going to come into being at least sometime in the next 6 months. But what you're there is to really explain the challenges we face. And that's why we've set it up this way this year, is what are the various challenges that we all face at the federal level in terms of support for language education. And for us, it's things like, we have a great program at the Department of Defense to do innovative world language programs. We don't have a similar program at the Department of Ed that's open to all school districts. There is not any federal support still for CLL biliteracy programs. We'd love to see that happen. We could use more support for study abroad, something that not everybody gets to do. In fact, only 10% of college students actually study abroad. And I think all of you know how critical that opportunity is. And then finally, we have both an opportunity to challenge here, which is that we're looking at possibly constrained spending. So we're going to have to make pretty strong arguments as to why we need increases for the programs that we oftentimes put front and center. That includes our own WILARA program, Native Americans Language Resource Center, which is a brand new program, brand new center that actually finally just was enacted and established last year, and Title III and everything else that folks really rely on at the K through 12 and higher ed level to make sure that good language education is delivered. So we'll talk in more depth about all these next time, but thank you again for coming to this. And as you can see, you're going to have a lot to talk about when you go to the Hill. Let's move on to the next slide. So as you prepare to go up there, and a lot of you have done this before. In fact, this is a good opportunity to use the chat, I guess. If you can put in the chat, if you're a first timer doing Hill visits, or if this is your 7th or 8th time doing it, that would be great to see. I'm definitely interested in that. But for all of you, it's worth reiterating, even if you've done this before, that this is your right to do this, to advocate. There's nothing illegal about it, and it's important to do it. You have a right to petition the government, and it's in the Constitution, and you are exercising that right in a very, very valid way when you approach Capitol Hill. What you're doing more than anything else, though, is beyond just exercising your right to petition the government. You're actually there to inform policy decisions they make. Everything from bills that they're going to introduce to how much money, if any, they're going to put towards those programs that exist. You're going to be able to give the real world examples that they don't know about as to why these programs and these dollars are so valuable. You'll be able to tell them where they've worked. You'll be able to tell them what happens if those dollars disappear. That's why you're so critical. Amanda and I frequently talk to members of Congress and their staffs, but unlike you, at least for me, I'm not on the ground. I'm not in the weeds, able to talk to them about how language education works, the intricacies of that, the value of that, the successes that you've had. You can provide that information, and it's going to mean so much coming from all of you because you're their constituents. You're talking about what happens sometimes in their hometowns, certainly in their home districts, and definitely in their home states. So that's why it's so critical. So as you go into this, think about the story that you want to share, and that is the most important thing that you do right off the bat. Tell your story, tell them where you're from, and make sure that they understand what it is you do and why language education is so critical. And Amanda will get a little bit more into prep time here, but sharing your story, informing their policy decisions, that's what it's all about when you go up there. Let's move on to the next slide. Finally, I just want to emphasize one thing here. We hope this is not the only time that you do this, and this is not your only advocacy activity. What we really want to do here is more than have a couple of meetings once a year, is we want this to be something that's not a one-off activity, something that is the beginning of a relationship with you, the legislator, and their staff, so that you become a trusted resource that they can go to when they have questions, when they want to know how much money they should invest in something, and whether or not to make a particular decision about a particular program. They need to have you as a trusted advisor. And more importantly, when they do the right thing, which is vote for a bill, sign a letter in support of legislation or funding, or do something else that really draws positive attention to language education, you can be their source of very positive press. And though we're not in cycle this year for a midterm election, in another 2 years, they're going to be up again, and they're going to value your praise if it's there and valid. So please bear in mind that as important as it is for you to go up there and make your case, they're not only important to you, you're important to them. So let me leave it there, and I look forward to speaking with you in a lot more depth when you arrive next month, and turn it back over, I think, to Amanda.
Thank you, John. Thank you so much. So I want to just continue to help you think about how you prepare for this event. And the first thing is to connect with your state delegation. How do you do that? You connect with your state delegation when you get the information next week, February 1st. You'll receive the information to log in and look at the platform. That platform is chock full of information. In addition to all of the JNCL materials that we will be providing, it will be there on that platform where you can see all the different ideas, the information that John was sharing, and more, as well as a list of the people who will be in the meetings with you when your meetings will be, and you'll have their contact information. So you'll be able to contact your state delegation prior to the actual event. If you want to, you can even plan a time to get together as a team. In addition to that, you'll have the entire directory of all of the people who will be attending LAD. So it's a really neat opportunity to really just start connecting. And your state delegation is really, it's important that you speak with a cohesive voice, having the different perspectives and bringing the different perspectives that you all have, but speaking about the same things, planning some of that out. You will have time to do that on that Wednesday as well. But I wanted you to know as well that that's a way you can do it beforehand. The second thing is to collect state data and create a one-pager. Now, one-pagers, years ago we didn't do it, but the last several years we've had some of the most incredible one-pagers. I loved when I used to create the one-pager for New Jersey because it really allowed me to focus on the federal legislative asks that JNCL was sharing with me for us all to be sharing, but that also gave me the chance to give the information to my legislators about what's going on in New Jersey. Because even though they affect federal legislation and not necessarily are not involved in state legislation, their knowledge of what's happening in the state and the ways that you can connect what you want to see happen federally to what is going on in your state is very important. Those are very important tools. So actually, I think there was a question about this in the chat about, can we bring up our state issues at the same time? I think tying it to what we're asking in the federal asks and talking a little bit about what's going on in your state and some of the challenges is great as well. The place to put that information so that there's something that they have is in that one pager that your state team can create or someone from your state team can create. The third is use the JNCL Nicholas Legislative Action Center to get to know your members of Congress and their legislative priorities, as well as perhaps the committees that they serve on. And that will be a great way to do it. In addition to that, there's information about each member in the platform that you'll be receiving access to, where everything else will be. So everything's in one place. And just to answer that question that just came across, samples of one-pagers can be seen on our website on our advocacy web page, and you'll be able to find samples of state one-pagers from the last several years. So be sure you check that out before you create yours. It might give you some good ideas. And finally, and probably the most important thing, is practice your story. Think about, I like to say, do a personal inventory of who you know, of what you know, and of the experiences that have led you to come to this, to advocate for language education, why language education is important, and certainly why multilingualism is such an asset to our nation. And when you think about the story and personalize it and give your legislators and their staff members the opportunity to think about how it is impacting things locally in your state, in your town, you really are able to make a difference. And it's often those stories that are the things that catalyze the change, the opportunities, and the legislators' involvement in our work. So I want to just make sure that everyone has this and can think about this, and we can move on. And we're going to move on to some questions and answers. So be sure that you send me your questions and answers in the chat. And just to get started, Linda, I think there's a question about the samples already, but I wanted to just mention again that we have a new advocacy website within our website, our web page, our advocacy web page that you can go to, and you can find tons of resources that will help with that. Does anybody else have a question? Let me just see here. Linda, did you have a question that you wanted to share, or some thoughts that you wanted to share about this?
I do. And one of the things I really want to reiterate, and just the experiences that I have had on Capitol Hill or the virtual meetings, is that you represent the voices oftentimes that they don't hear from on Capitol Hill. They're there to represent you, but they need to know what your needs are. They need to know about your programs. And really what the piece is, that one of the important roles that we play is we put a face to the legislation needs that we're asking about. And so when you talk about the need for a seal of biliteracy, some seal of biliteracy support or funding, you need to talk about the impact that that has had in your own schools and in your programs. When you talk about the need for dual language immersion programs, you want to talk about the efficacy and the affordability of curriculum and instruction that supports those. So think about, what is your personal story? The other piece that I really was another aha for me, my first time attending Language Advocacy Days, was the realization that unless you participate, the door doesn't open. And so as we have a representative from all 50 states, which means that we can get into all 100 senators' offices. However, you will only get into the representative's office that you, as that constituent, represent. And so if you're in a state like I am in Illinois, where we have lots of representatives, we only get into those offices where we have a participating representative or delegate. And so it's really important that you spread the word, that you create a state team that is diverse, that represents different parts and locations around your state, not just so that you have a partner, but so that we have access to more doors, so that we can get into more legislative offices. And as you're all hearing, with the sort of bumpy start to this particular new Congress, we have a lot of new faces to meet, and we have a lot of new relationships to create. And so you'll be able to have those meetings together and have that mutual camaraderie and support. But the more the merrier, and the more the doors open. And so I really want to encourage you, if we've just extended that registration time to give you a few more days until the end of January 31st, to get some more people on your state's team. And let's see if we can't get into more representatives' offices than we did last year, which would be totally exciting and terrific, because then that's the story that, you know, we're being able to tell. And so I think finally, you know, hopefully Amanda's got some questions now that we could answer. This would be your time to get them to her if you haven't yet done that. But I really, you know, just want to encourage you to get someone else to register, so that with your state, so that we can get into more offices. If you're the only person from your office, you know, from your state, we might only get into those 3 offices. So that's just, you know, that was my big aha. You can't just walk in because you're from their state. You have to be from their state and their district.
Right. Thank you so much, Linda. Yeah, I think the things you shared were so important. And I noticed one question regarding how we can find out who's registered from each state. And one of the most important things you can do, again, when you get the login information on February 1st, you will be able to see who is registered for the entire event. You will also be able to see the people who are attending meetings with you. Those people who are attending meetings with you are from your state, maybe not from your district, or from your state. One of the cool things about doing this virtually is that we've been able to invite all of the state team members to attend all of the different congressional meetings. So in the past, when we were in Washington, I would go to meet with my district representative, but we would all go as a team to meet with our senators. Now, all of the different members of Congress, members of the House, I'm able to be a part of those meetings, even if it's not my district. And of course, in the meetings where it is my district, and if it's my district representative, I would be the one probably leading the meeting, because remember that the constituent of that district has the most power there, right? You're the vote that they're looking for. So I would just, as you plan with your state teams, think about that. Think about who would share what when, you know, and in what offices, and how you want to think about those things. Certainly, if somebody has a connection to someone in one of those offices, maybe it's a staffer, maybe it's a connection to the member himself or herself. These are important things to consider when you're preparing. So that is something to think about as well. And again, all of the information you need, and probably more, is going to be available on that platform that if you were with us last year, you'll recognize. If you were not and you're new, I think you'll be amazed at how easy it is and how many things are right there at your fingertips, including the links to your meetings. Everything in one place. So log in, it'll remind you when your meeting is. You'll click on the link. It's just like a Zoom link, just like this, and you'll suddenly be with the staffer and or the member that you'll be meeting with, as well as your team members. And you know, we're familiar with Zoom, right? We're all familiar with Zoom. So there's nothing to be concerned about. It's something you know, and it's a Zoom experience that, quite honestly, I feel as though it gives you the chance to have a more intimate conversation with your member and with their staff members. Why? Because when you're in person, they are being pulled in a million directions. And there's kind of a focus, a Zoom focus that you get that you don't necessarily get in person. What I want to share also is that someone's asked about whether this event will be virtual moving forward, or if there's going to be an in-person event in the future. And I'm really glad you asked that. We are holding it virtually this year, and perhaps moving forward, it will also be virtual. And there's a reason for why we continue doing it virtually this year. So I want to take a moment to explain that. The last few years, obviously, we had to. This year, we had to as well, because security is still not clear on both sides of the hill. We don't know how many people can get in at a time. We would need to be cautious about that, because the worst thing would be if we got there and we were unable to all get in. But the most important reason is that we've realized over the last few years that we're able to have all 50 states represented, and that never happened before at LAD. Why? Because we've taken down those barriers of travel, of time off, of leaving your classroom, of the challenges of distance and logistics. And what I'm grateful for is that Zoom has given us this opportunity, and that our legislators are happy to meet with us online, where I think we're able to have an even more impressive impact in some ways. So this is a great opportunity for us virtually. I also want to tell you some exciting news, which is that later this year, we will be having an in-person event as well. So we will be focusing perhaps on World Leap, or on whatever policy and legislative decisions are of the utmost importance at that time. That will happen sometime early in the fall, perhaps around the beginning of October. And we will be sharing more information about that at the event for a save the date. And then we'll be sharing more as we go on. So it's exciting. We're going to try and make sure that everyone always has the chance to be involved in our advocacy. Linda, did you want to share anything about that?
No, I just want to just reiterate that it is with intention and design, by design, that Language Advocacy Days is virtual. We need to be in every senator's office. We need to be in as many representatives' offices as we can. And we realized that just wasn't happening as effectively as it can happen with this virtual opportunity. At the same time, I know it's exciting to go to Capitol Hill. It's a really interesting experience to be able to sort of meet in person. It is to be there, to take that photo in front of the Capitol building. And so we do want to support that, but in a very targeted way this fall, in October likely. So we hope that you'll be able to participate in that as well, especially if that virtual experience is not, you want more, you want to do the in-person as well. But we do, for this Language Advocacy Days, for access and equity, we want to keep it virtual because it really is effectively helping us meet with as many people as possible.
And not to mention the fact that the last few years, we've been able to have students in some of our meetings with legislators, which I think is just phenomenal. And the impact that that has, I mean, Linda, you know for sure, because you've brought students to Language Advocacy Days before, you know how meaningful that is for our members of Congress to have students talking about this. So that's another piece of this that we really believe is important here. So look forward to the opportunity to see you all in person, perhaps in October, but also thinking about what Virtual Advocacy Days has provided us as a field to make sure that our outreach is what it needs to be. I wanted to just answer a couple of other questions. There was a question about adding more resources to the resources page. Yes, absolutely. Send us resources and we'll make sure that we upload them. We want to have as many resources as possible. You see the different areas in the resources page where there are some things that we're looking for from different states. Be sure that you make that available to us and we'll share it. And then I also just want to clarify that you will have real clarity about who you'll be meeting with when you receive your schedule and your login information. The goal is that you would meet with your entire team for your state, for both of your senators, but that you would also have the opportunity to meet with your representative in the House, as well as be present for some of those other meetings with other team members. Now, all of that is going to depend on the size of your team. I'll be honest, sometimes there's a team from California or from Maryland that is huge. And we have to sometimes break you into two groups because you don't want to have about 30 people in one group when you could actually have two meetings going on and have a few in each, and that way have the one constituent really focusing on that. But the Senate meetings, we make sure that they're scheduled in a way that you can all attend both Senate meetings, and that's a very important opportunity for us as well. Linda, did you have anything you want to add maybe about the students?
No, I don't see any other questions. As far as students, if you have students, please encourage them to participate. It is a civics lesson, so it's certainly cross-curricular and in terms of that opportunity. But I will tell you, having taken my students and having had other students participate virtually as well as in person in Language Advocacy Days, they will, number one, never forget the experience, but two, they're the voices that our representatives often want to hear from because, they might think, well, you're the teacher, it's your job. They want to know the impact on the language learners. That's who they're funding the legislation for. And so if you have that opportunity, whether it's a class, it could be a great advanced placement opportunity, fits right into one of those themes. So please consider registering with students as well.
Thank you, Linda. I really appreciate that. I think it's such an important thing. And actually, I want to bring up one point that we had, our incredible advocate, Ted Zarrow. Last year, he was able to set it up as an in-school field trip for his students. They got permission slips, the whole 9 yards, and they were able to, be in a classroom and connect with their members of the legislature of Congress in that situation. And with regard to all of the fall event questions, we'll be able to fill in more information about that at our event when you come to LAD, and there will be more information coming out about that soon. But for now, what's really important is that you look at how you're able to bring your story and your ideas to your meetings. And there is a question here about how you register with students. Go ahead, Linda.
No, there are a couple of questions here on the students, so.
Go ahead.
So you're going to use the same registration application space, but there is a place there to indicate that they are students. So they will register in the same way. You can also have you may just choose to have students with you, depending upon what works best for you, or and how your setup is going to be in terms of the times. Because keep in mind that while we set the schedule for the Wednesday and Friday activities, that the Thursday schedule is oftentimes dependent upon the schedule of the particular senator or representative that you're meeting with. But there is a specific, thank you, Alyssa. I didn't have it quickly at hand, but she's got the student rate registration page link in the chat box for you.
Yes, and then there was another question specifically about our fall event, whether it's going to be annual. We hope so. We're looking forward to doing that. And we'll, again, be sharing more about that as time permits and as we're able to share more. But certainly, the background. Oh, I'm so glad someone asked. I'm so glad you noticed. Yay. We love our new background, and that will be sent to you along with email communication about upcoming materials you'll be receiving. You're going to start getting a lot of emails from us coming up soon, just in time to make sure that you have all the information. But we will be sending that out next week along with a lot of the other pieces that you'll be getting. So of course, if you know how to create your Zoom, have a Zoom background, make sure you download it, and then you'll just add it to your virtual background options in Zoom and be able to have the capital behind you for your meetings as well. And the other question was, could teachers attend? Of course, the idea is that teachers attend. If you're asking about LAD, I will say that teachers are primarily who attends this event. We're thrilled to have as many teachers as possible. In fact, last year we had some teachers who literally attended during their breaks, during the day. They would step out, sometimes they had coverage for a class, sometimes they just waited until they had a break and they were able to join us for as much as possible. Again, our schedule for LAD is designed to be in the afternoons as much as possible. Of course, I understand that that's different on the West Coast, but we tried to make it so that it's noon and beyond. Obviously, I know that that's not true for our friends in Alaska, and I know that can be challenging. But we want to make sure that we reach as many people as possible, and that's what we're trying to achieve there. Let's see. The next question is: this will be beneficial for language access coordinators for courts, correct? I think that it's beneficial for anyone who is looking for people who are multilingual to be a part of our workforce, to be a part of our communities, and to be able to grow that group of people. And I think that that's exactly what the purpose of LAD has been all along. Certainly language access requires multilingual people who are able to communicate either as certified interpreters and translators or in other professions.
Yeah, I would just add, that's at the heart of this year's theme, building opportunities through multilingualism.
Absolutely. Anybody else have any questions? We can use our teacher waiting time, Linda, and see if anybody sends us a question, practicing good waiting time. And one of the things, of course, we want to remind you of is that registration is open until the 31st. That is Tuesday. Tuesday. And we invite you, every single one of you who is here today, to invite at least one other person to join you, because we know that when we multiply our voices, we have an incredible impact. And so I urge you to make sure that you visit the registration page and ask a colleague to join you. It can be someone you know in your state, someone you know in your community. It can be someone you know in another state. But the bigger our state teams are and the more diversity we have demographically with regard to where everyone is and geographically and what their experiences are and what types of districts they're in or what types of programs they serve or where they're working and what they're doing, that's how we have a better set of voices, a broader set of voices that allow us to address all of the challenges and the goals that we have.
I would add, both the diversity in terms of the geographic as well as the diversity of the programs that you represent and can speak for. So whether that's dual language or it's higher ed and Fulbright, whatever that might be, the more diversity we have in terms of who we represent in your state level is going to be really important. So thank you for that.
Yes, and world language education and dual language education and the focus on multilingualism across our nation is the name of the game here. That's what we need. And we need more than ever in our country to make sure that that is seen as an asset, and that what we're doing and the words that we share, the ideas and the stories that we share are heard by our legislators and their teams so that we can move these ideas forward. So I think what we'll do is we'll move on to, you can follow up with us. We look forward to seeing everyone next month, which is only a couple of weeks away, and believe it or not. And so Language Advocacy Days will be from February 8th to the 10th. We encourage you to start using our hashtag now. Let everyone know online how excited you are to be attending. We'd love to see that, and we'd love to amplify that. So please be sure to share about it, both on social media as well as, with your colleagues. If you have any questions, please use the JNCL events email that you see listed here, jnclevents@languagepolicy.org. And also be sure to visit www.languagepolicy.org/LAD23 for all of the information that you might be looking for. We look forward to seeing you all there. Linda, did you have something you'd like to share?
Well, I just want to say thank you very much. I thank you for participating. Thank you for registering for this event and for your voices. And thank you, most importantly, for being that language advocate in your own community, as well as, in this case, your nation. So thank you so much.